Hello everybody, my name is Damon Stanwell-Smith and I work for Viking. I joined Viking Expedition Operations in 2019 and I am our Head of Science and Sustainability. I joined after a career in marine and expeditionary research, including working with the British Antarctic Survey and with the UN Environment Programme. I'm talking to you now from my home in Cambridge in the UK. And today I'm very much looking forward to sharing with you our new product, Viking Expeditions. You may have seen on December the 28th on Viking.TV that my colleague Joost explained and described our Viking ocean cruising product. And I do encourage you to watch that if you have a moment, because it's very much complementary to what I'm going to be discussing today. And that is because we are looking to take all that we've learned from our multi-award-winning ocean cruising and applying it and reimagining expedition cruising. So after the presentation, I will be doing a Q&A session, and I do encourage those that if you have any questions, please enter into the Viking.TV portal those questions as they come up over the next 45 minutes. And I'll endeavour to answer those after the talk. And to start with, here's a little teaser. I would first like to speak about our phrase perfecting expeditions. After the work that we have done to make river and ocean voyaging so popular and successful and enjoyable for our guests, we are looking to apply that experience to expeditions. We're not having the hubris to say that we are perfect, but we will be working in every way we can with a blank slate to developing every aspect of an expedition voyage to be perfect for you. So we are proud in Viking that we are now operating in all 7 continents of the world. We're operating in 95 countries, and you'll see from the image the other statistics here. The key one is that we are looking, just like the original Vikings 1,000 years ago, to be voyaging all over the world. Viking Expeditions, with the extra capacity that our new vessels have, will enable us to go to the places that Viking River cruises and Viking Ocean cruises have not yet been able to get to. This is the Viking philosophy. It's our promise to you. We all travel to explore, to learn, and to understand. At Viking, we believe travel should be more than just a trip. It should be a gateway to insight and discovery. We design our itineraries so our guests can explore and engage with nature, culture, science, and history of the destinations they're visiting. We're aiming not to be everything to everyone. We focus on English-speaking mature couples with curious minds. We're destination orientated. We offer a highly inclusive product with no nickel and diming. We aim to be an efficient operator, and we pass the savings along to our guests. And we hire the best staff. We have the highest retention rate of our staff and crew in the industry. Our chair has often said we are the thinking person's cruising, not the drinking person's cruising. And for expeditions, we are the thinking person's expeditions, created for curious and experienced travellers. And we're looking to expand on the mission of journeying to unexplored wilderness, both at the far reaches of the world and in the heart of North America. We have re-envisaged expedition voyages to facilitate exploration and scientific discovery and to create a highly enriching experience for our guests. We would like our guests to experience the destination through exploration and scientific discovery, to understand and practice photography of avian species they may encounter, to learn more with recommended destination-specific photography advice, reading materials and films, to enhance your journey on board with world-class lectures designed to enrich and regionally inspire, and to connect with fellow English-speaking travellers sharing the same interests, ideals and backgrounds. For Viking Expeditions, we're taking scientific research very seriously. We have partnered with a series of world-renowned academic institutions, led by the University of Cambridge's Scott Polar Research Institute in Cambridge in the UK, whose scientists will be on board our ships and will be sharing their expertise with our guests as they undertake primary research. We've also partnered with the globally recognised Cornell Lab of Ornithology, whose bird biologists will be regularly on board, field testing new observation methods and providing guest advice and interaction. We've also partnered with NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration of the US, specifically the Great Lakes Environmental Research Laboratory based in Ann Arbor in Michigan. Our resident scientists on board will include an expedition team of expertise, including biologists, botanists, geologists, glaciologists, oceanographers, and ornithologists. There will be polar expertise and historians and archaeologists in places where that would be adding and enriching to the voyage. In addition, resident scientists will include partner institution scientists working in our onboard laboratory and with our field equipment, and offering guests a unique opportunity to learn about and to engage with and participate in ongoing primary research. We also are fully committed to responsible travel. We are members of both IATO and ACO. And on a personal level, the role that I had before I worked with Viking, I was the executive director of IATO, which is the trade association for environmentally responsible expedition operations in the Antarctic. We will be following all of the rules, the regulations and the guidelines, both to the letter and the spirit, and going beyond what is required to ensure that all our operations in the Antarctic are entirely safe and environmentally responsible. We are also a member of the Association of Arctic Expedition Cruise Operators, which is the sister organisation to IATO for the northern regions. And we'll be following all of ACO's guidelines, rules, regulations, suggestions to make sure that we behave equally responsibly in the Arctic. In the Great Lakes, we will ensure we follow best travel practices and support scientific research, working closely with our partner in NOAA, Great Lakes Environmental Research Laboratory. And we will be supporting the efforts to preserve, promote and protect the regions we visit, from the United States National Parks to the Canadian First Nations peoples with whom we interact. For Viking Expeditions, our experiences have been designed to take you closer. We offer a variety of excursions so that you can experience your destination in the way that most interests you. We have a wide variety of included experiences, and science is a really important aspect. So during your excursion, you have the experiential activities and fieldwork opportunities to really participate in primary science. At Viking, we say that we are destination focused. In an expeditionary context, being destination focused is all about the remote places and the wildlife that we'll see in those places when we're on our voyages. Here are a couple of films that highlight the flora and the fauna that we will be seeing and enjoying on the different itineraries that are being planned for Viking Expeditions.
At the top and bottom of the world, amongst the grandeur of polar landscapes, some of nature's most precious treasures are hidden in plain sight. The field microscope is your gateway into another world and quickly changes your perspective on everything, as it reveals layer upon layer of fascinating details that one would otherwise easily miss. In the Arctic, the island archipelago of Svalbard is a wonderland of rugged terrain and massive glaciers. Heralding the Arctic spring are hundreds of species of small flowering plants. Like the delicate Svalbard poppy, the national plant of Svalbard. It thrives in this extreme climate by using hairs on its stem to keep it warm. And its flower swivels to maximize sunlight during the short polar growing season. Variations of saxifraga grow in mats throughout Svalbard. The name is derived from the Latin name for stonebreaker. These hardy plants have flowers ranging from white to pink to purple. And in the Arctic region, they've long been a food source for indigenous people due to their high vitamin C content. This region looked much different countless millennia ago during warmer periods. The fossils of ancient trees and long extinct animals speak to a time when Svalbard was subtropical and humid. Time and nature transformed those forests and animals into the large coal deposits that are plentiful within the archipelago. At the bottom of the world, in even more forbidding conditions, Antarctica is home to its own equally fascinating ecosystems. The soil is poor, the growing season short, and there are no bees or bats to pollinate. Still, there is some interesting, resilient plant life that thrives. While lichens and moss represent the majority of Antarctic flora, there's one hearty plant that defies the odds. Antarctic hairgrass, most commonly seen amongst the penguin colonies. Somehow, it's evolved to endure the most extreme weather on Earth. The beautiful Antarctic pearlwort resembles a southern version of one of the Arctic's saxifraga, growing in ground cover cushions and producing a tiny, sunny yellow flower. The flora of the Arctic and Antarctica offer a glimpse into a complex living world. Every bit as impressive in its own way as the forests of Earth's more temperate zones. You're sure to be both humbled and awed by the majestic life you'll find on these extraordinary expeditions. At the far ends of the Earth, in some of the most extreme environments imaginable, live some of the world's most resilient creatures. And Antarctica's nearly unlivable conditions for most of the year are well documented. Yet life abounds during the short but spectacular summer season on the White Continent. The oceans are filled with fascinating life, including some of the world's largest living mammals. With their distinctive humps and unique black and white tail patterns, humpback whales are easy to spot in these frigid waters. Humpbacks come to Antarctica's polar waters each summer to feed on massive shoals of tiny krill, a nearly microscopic relative of the shrimp, before migrating to warmer waters, where they give birth to their young. Other marine mammals, like the distinctive leopard seal, named for its black spotted coat, also call these waters home. These big pinnipeds can weigh over 800 pounds. They're hunters living on smaller seals, penguins, birds, fish and squid. The only predator they fear is the mighty killer whale. On shore, you won't see large, iconic animals like those of the Arctic. In fact, the largest terrestrial inhabitant here is but half an inch long, the wingless midge, an insect. However, what you will find in adorable abundance are penguins. Of the 17 species of penguin in the world, 7 spend time in Antarctica. Of these, 2 species are found nowhere else. The bountiful Adelie penguin, with an estimated population of 2.5 million pairs. And a rarer sighting on your expedition, the regal emperor penguin, who also calls Antarctica home year-round. These majestic creatures can grow to 4.5 feet tall. Penguins have evolved over time to swim rather than fly. With their wings acting as flippers, they glide gracefully through the Antarctic seas. Research has shown their waddling to be a highly effective means of walking on snow and ice. And when they toboggan across slick snow on their stomachs, they can outpace a running human. At the top of the world, near the North Pole, you'll encounter a whole different variety of wildlife. Camouflaged beautifully against a snowy landscape is the quintessential symbol of Arctic life, the polar bear. Ursus maritimus, the maritime bear. It's born on land but beautifully adapted for moving across floating ice and swimming open waters. The polar bear prefers a diet of seals, but when the sea ice is scarce, they adapt their diet and eat almost anything with protein, including reindeer. The walrus is one of the Arctic's most lovable creatures, with its whiskers, tusks and rotund physique. These same qualities, however, have made them a prized commodity over the centuries to the region's indigenous people, who've hunted walrus for their meat, blubber, tusks and skin. You may spot walruses in their preferred shallow waters, feasting on clams and other mollusks. The Svalbard reindeer also calls this rugged environment home. They live a nomadic life in a never-ending search for food, covering as much as 5,000 kilometers a year, in their quest to build the fat reserves they'll need to survive winter. Connecting the two ends of the Earth is one tireless creature, the tiny Arctic tern. This ambitious little bird travels up to 44,000 miles annually, the longest migration in the world, from the Arctic to Antarctica and back again, logging more than 1 million miles in its lifetime. Whether you explore the Arctic or Antarctica, you're sure to be both humbled and awed by the majestic wildlife you'll find on these extraordinary expeditions.
So when enjoying the wildlife on expeditions, we're also offering the best dining choices at sea. We've taken the very best from Viking Ocean ships and brought it to our expedition ships. So a great day begins on board with a selection of healthy culinary options to fuel your adventure. Choose from a wide range of dishes, from breakfast classics to simple but nourishing fare inspired by Norwegian tradition. And each of these options are discussed later in this presentation. And you'll be aware that our service is award-winning. We're the employer of choice with an experienced management team and rigorous training program that makes Viking a very desirable place to work. We have over a 90% return year after year of staff retention. We have English-speaking staff trained to the highest service standards, Swiss trained, and a service guarantee. Speaking to Viking's inclusive value, we would like to be everything you need and with the ability to customize. So we are offering complimentary a wide range of off-ship activities, all on-board meals, your choice of multiple dining venues, wine, beer, soft drinks and bottled water, specialty coffees and teas, free Wi-Fi, free access to the spa and the fitness centre, self-service laundrette, all port charges and government taxes, and a complimentary expedition jacket in polar regions. And we like to define ourselves as well as of what we are, but also what we're not. While most cruise lines are building bigger and more over-the-top ships, offering a multitude of experiences to a broad spectrum of ages, we provide you with all that you need and nothing that you do not. I would now like to quote Torstein Hagen, our chairman. Our expeditions reveal a breathtaking view of the planet in its purest state and take you to pristine landscapes to witness wildlife in its natural habitat. Viking expeditions will be different. Allow me to introduce you to our beautiful new expedition vessels, Viking Octantis and Viking Polaris. Our ships have been optimally designed for expedition cruising. They've been designed to be small enough to navigate remote areas, yet large enough to provide speed, superior handling and stability in the roughest seas. They're small enough to gain access, large enough to be comfortable, and large enough to include all the facilities to be a super capable expeditionary platform. So here is a 360-degree render of different perspectives of our new expedition ships. So first, let's look at the ships' names. Inspired by the heavens, we have named our expedition ships after Polaris, the North Star, located exactly at Earth's north celestial pole, as Sigma Octantis, the Southern Star, only 1 degree from the South celestial pole. Our expedition ships are Polar Class 6, which allows summer and autumn operations in medium first-year ice with old ice inclusions. We will have maximum of 378 guests on board, there are 260 crew, and just over 30,000 gross tons. They're Norwegian flagged, and their home port is Longyearbyen in Svalbard. It's a beautiful, long, slender vessel that will be very efficient moving through the water. And as we describe ourselves as traveling the world in comfort, when it comes to expedition vessels, Viking comfort is all about how the ship handles rough weather. Our expedition ships have dynamic positioning, enabling the vessels to remain stationary using technology developed in the oil and gas industry without putting down an anchor. They have hydrodynamic stabilization with fins that fold out when going through the water to reduce the amount of movement. And also, when static, they have a U-tank stabilizer that reduces rolling when sitting stationary by nearly 50%. This is all to enhance guest comfort and safety. We will now show you a short video showing how we conceived and designed our expedition ships.
Creating an expedition ship worthy of the Viking name is no small endeavour, especially when our award-winning ocean and river fleet have set such high standards. When designing vessels to bring our guests to the ends of the earth and back, every part of the ship operations and guest experience has to be carefully considered, and every step of the way guided by our chairman Torstein Hagen, whose attention to detail is second to none. To optimize safety, comfort and guest flow, the design process was, as usual, an ongoing collaboration of many people, involving our maritime architects, interior designers and all key departments at Viking. It's a global effort, tapping the expertise and experience of our nautical and technical staff, expedition leaders, enrichment officers, food and beverage and hotel operations. The goal? To ensure that when our guests set off to explore the world with us, they'll enjoy the same onboard ambiance and our commitment to learning and discovery that's long distinguished Viking from others. Construction begins with the ceremonial first cutting of steel at the shipyard. The next major milestone is the keel laying. This marks the first joining of modular components. It's celebrated with an age-old tradition and a coin from the ship's owner. The coin is meant to bring good fortune when it's welded to the vessel. This is recognized as the moment the ship first comes to life. Stay tuned for the next update on the building of your expedition ship.
So this image you may recognize from the Viking Expedition brochure. It's highlighting how the ship has been designed for views. We have more indoor and outdoor viewing areas than any other expedition vessels, and our guests are as close as possible to the most magnificent scenery on Earth. Public rooms have floor-to-ceiling windows, and the aula, our panoramic auditorium that I'll be talking about later, offers 270-degree views. Staterooms have also been designed to maximize observation, from our Nordic balcony staterooms to explorer suites with verandas and gardens. So we'll start with the atrium. This is on deck 1, and you'll see that there are spaces between the decks to enable sight lines to get a feeling of looking from one area to another on the vessel. And if we move to the aft of deck 2, I'd like to introduce the aula. This, we believe, is the world's most advanced venue for learning at sea. It's a stunning panoramic alfresco auditorium, the naming of which is inspired by the University of Oslo's famed ceremonial hall, the former venue for the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony. Indeed, aula is both a Greek and Old Norse word for auditorium for learning. The aula is used for lectures, daily briefings, and for showing films. This unique space features an 8K laser projected panoramic screen that can retract to expose floor-to-ceiling windows and 270-degree views. In addition, the large bottom windows of the stage walls slide open, providing alfresco access and an indoor-outdoor experience with nature taking center stage. hope you'll agree that the Aula really is a remarkable space. We're now looking at the Finse Terrace outside of the Aula windows. Now, the Finse Terrace is named after Carina Hagen's Labrador, who was born in Highclere Castle of Downton Abbey fame, and who in turn was named after the village high on the mountain plateau of Hardangervidda in Norway. Here you'll find an outdoor paradise with comfortable seating, wide views of nature around you, and 2 heated lava stone fire pits to keep you warm. We're now looking at the Explorers Lounge. This is on decks 4 and 5 and has been a favourite location on our ocean ships with our guests. The Explorers Lounge is inspired by epic journeys of discovery. It is 2 decks high and surrounded by panoramic windows. And in this inviting space, friends can relax while taking in the scenery. We're now looking at the living room. This is on deck 5, so quite high on the ship to maximise views through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The living room is where guests can listen to classical music or soothing piano sonatas. With Nordic furnishings, relevant and engaging books, and a wall mural of a variety of whales represented to scale, guests will find both comfort and enrichment. We're now looking at the Aquavit Terrace on deck 5. You can settle into the Aquavit bar and share stories with fellow travellers while enjoying an Irish coffee or ship-matured aquavit surrounded by trees inspired by Yggdrasil, Norse mythology's tree of life. The alfresco aquavit terrace is directly beyond, surrounding the pools in the aft of the ship. There's a trio of pools, each at different temperatures, following the Roman bath principle of a caldarium, tepidarium and frigidarium, including an indoor-outdoor pass-through swimming experience. The heated main pool is a calming oasis in any weather, protected by a retractable roof for year-round use. We're now down on deck 2, looking at the Nordic Spa, where you can relax and take in the scenery from our spa pool, gazing out of the floor-to-ceiling windows. You can work out in the fitness centre on a choice of treadmills, ellipticals, stationary bikes or weight machines. Or you can enjoy the sauna, the Badestamp, which is a sort of Nordic hot tub in the outdoors, or the snow grotto with its snow on demand, and a warming cave. We're still on deck 2, and now we are at an area we call Expeditions Central. This is populated by our expedition team and is a key onboard area for guests where you can plan and book your excursions, you can verify activities and landings, the go-to-gate times will be listed, and you can get answers to questions about upcoming activities. You can also learn more about your destinations by viewing real-time ship tracking. You can examine the chart table, highlighting the areas through which we're sailing, and you can review the information provided by ACO and IATA in polar areas about landing regulations and biosecurity standards for the sensitive environments in which we are sailing. Also in Expedition Central, there is a workshop space that we're calling the studio for workshops, photography classes, citizen science projects, and other interactions with guests. This onboard area offers a multi-purpose space facilitating enrichment with all of our expedition team and resident scientists. On the wall, we have had felt replicas of the primary bird species that inhabit or migrate the regions that we visit. They are life-size and they are almost photorealistic, amazing sculptures. Here, guests can learn to identify different birds, practice photography techniques, and learn more about their various habits with our ornithologists on board as part of our Viking Resident Science programme. And on to the expedition gear. The phrase, "there is no such thing as bad weather, just inappropriate clothing," is very relevant on expeditions. And when in polar areas, we offer a complimentary expedition jacket that has been specifically designed for your comfort and safety. We're including for free usage when on board bespoke rubber boots that are insulated and specially designed for efficient expedition activities, waterproof pants and Nordic walking poles. And then There is a list here of equipment that we suggest that you either purchase before the voyage or can be bought on board in order to ensure that you have all the equipment appropriate to really enjoy all the activities that we are offering with Viking Expeditions. We're now looking at a render of the hangar. This is an industry first. It's an enclosed in-ship marina at the aft of the vessel, a very substantial space where many of the tenders and off-ship vessels and craft are kept. There is a slipway that runs up through the centre of the hangar, where guests can embark on the rigid inflatable boats that we have, shielded from wind and waves from a flat, stable surface inside the ship, gliding in the water to depart on their excursion. You can re-enter the hangar after excursions via the slipway to the protected hangar space before disembarkation. We will now show a short video of how the slipway will work and also how we will be deploying our submersibles, which I'll be covering in a moment. And on to the expedition equipment on board. These are the tools that enable amazing expedition activities to be undertaken. We have a variety of landing and exploratory craft on board, which enable guests to experience and explore their surroundings. We have a fleet of military-grade Zodiacs. These are highly capable rubber inflatable boats. For those that know Zodiacs, they're Mark V Zodiacs, with a 60 horsepower tiller steered diesel motor on the back. This gives them a very efficient and can go long range and are very stable platforms for expedition activities. We have a fleet of two-seater custom designed kayaks. We're using Hobie Oasis kayaks that are pedal powered rather than hand powered. This enables hands-free operations so guests can use binoculars and photograph their surroundings. There's also a paddle as a backup. We have on each vessel 2 6-seater submarines. I'm going to cover those more in a moment, which enable unprecedented exploration below the water as well as being on the water. And then each vessel has 2 12-seater convertible rigid inflatable boats. Let's discuss our submarines. We have 2 6-seater submarines. They're made by U-Boat Works. They're called Cruise 7 submersibles, and they are rated to 1,000 feet of depth. Our chairman, Torstein Hagen, is a big Beatles fan, and so there was only ever one colour that they would be. So we have yellow submarines. The submarines can take 6 guests at a time below the surface with panoramic views of the scenery and wildlife underwater, piloted by a professional pilot. When I mentioned a moment ago our convertible ribs, I will elaborate. In some regions, having a cabin is both a regulatory requirement and also very useful for passenger comfort. And so we have designed our ribs to have a cabin that can be on or off for extra capable long distance excursions and also for maximum comfort. These are aluminium ice strengthened ribs. They're powered by water jets and 900 horsepower motors. And on each vessel, one of the ribs is designated a survey vessel with specialist oceanographic science equipment on board, enabling both bathymetric survey work to be undertaken as well as rib cruising. These are unprecedented in the industry, and a combination of the ribs combined with the slipway provide a really broad range of conditions in which we'll be able to operate effectively. I'd now like to show two images showing how the slipway works. This technology has been taken from military vessels and is unprecedented in the expedition industry. Our two ribs will sit on a slipway that is over 95 feet long. And when stowed, you'll see that they're sitting on the wheels on the slipway inside the vessel. The hatch will open in the aft, and then motorized wheels will lower the slipway down, enabling the rib to be launched and recovered. So we're now in an area that is very close to my heart, which is the lab on board. Now, in this render, the lab is the mezzanine space with the glass windows above the flotation units in this render. It is 40 square meters or 378 square feet in size and has been set up with full wet lab capacity as well as a dry capacity for being able to use microscopes and instrumentation. It has been designed in consultation with Cambridge University and our other academic partners and includes a sample processing area, comprehensive microscope optics, and space for analysis-specific instrumentation. It has seawater and freshwater supply, and it will be a technical space that will enable primary research to be undertaken and for guests to interact with supervised access in the lab from our resident scientists on board, an experience that is unique to Viking. And so from the lab, we move on to our staterooms. And the first thing I would like to highlight is our Nordic balcony concept. The Nordic balcony concept is harnessing the Norwegian reverence for light and to create an optimal wildlife observatory at sea. So they are floor-to-ceiling distortion-free glass at the very edge of the ship, letting you take in views while keeping the elements out. There's no veranda impeding your view, no intrusion to your elegant living space, and no detail overlooked in our quest to connect you more closely with the places you seek to explore. And if you wish to feel even closer to nature, the top of your panoramic glass lowers to transform your stateroom into a sheltered alfresco lookout with an observation shelf at elbow level to stabilize binoculars or photography of the majestic wilderness gliding by. So this is like a bird observation hide. And so we'll be able to turn the entire ship, every stateroom, into a hide for all the guests that wish to observe wildlife in this way. You can breathe in the pure air and listen to the sound of a breaching whale or the unique whistle of a bald eagle as you savour your morning coffee or sip a nightcap in comfort. I'd now like to highlight a design aspect that occurs in every single stateroom. It is a floor-to-ceiling drying closet. It's been designed to circulate warm air to dry and store all of your expedition equipment, from your keepsake expedition jacket and waterproof pants and boots, and Viking excursion gear. So suiting up is always pleasant, and you'll always be ready for the next discovery. There are 6 categories of stateroom on board Viking expedition vessels, starting with the Nordic balcony stateroom at 222 square feet. Every single stateroom has the Nordic balcony with its panoramic views, and all staterooms have the award-winning Viking Ocean bathroom that has been put on the expedition vessels. Efficient layouts with very large showers, heated floors, no fog mirrors. There are bathtubs in the Explorers suites, and so without the bathtubs we save 6% of space. There's easy to use faucets, and the toiletries have been specifically designed to our chairman's specifications. The next category up is the deluxe Nordic balcony, which is the same size cabins with a few more amenities. Then the Nordic penthouse, which is 20% larger than the Nordic and deluxe Nordic staterooms at 269 square feet. There are the Nordic junior suites, which are 20% larger again than the Nordic penthouses at 322 square feet. Then the Explorer suites at 580 square feet, so 20% larger again than the Nordic penthouse. And then the owner's suite at 1,206 square feet is 100% larger than the Explorer suite and is the most substantial suite on any of the Viking fleet. It has a private outdoor area with its own Badestamp and indeed a boardroom dining area as well as a large bedroom area. So we're now looking at the restaurant, our elegant dining venue. The restaurant offers our ultimate onboard dining experience. Regional cuisine and always available classics are served surrounded by sweeping views. And this has come from our ocean fleet. And on to Manfredi's, our much appreciated dining venue that's come from our ocean fleet, inspired by Italy's beloved trattorias. Manfredi's offers the best of Italian cuisine as well as a private dining room. A perfect opportunity for you to have an intimate meal with your family and friends. The World Cafe concept has come across from Viking Ocean and has been enhanced because we believe this is going to be the main area where our guests will be eating when undertaking expedition activities, with live cooking, an open kitchen, premium seafood and sushi choices, a grill, a gelateria, a 24-hour bakery, and it's the casual eating space that provides a vibrant, interactive experience and a wide range of international flavours. And another beloved space from our ocean fleet is Mamsen's. This Norwegian deli is named after Mamsen, the Hagen family matriarch. This venue offers Norwegian specialities including waffles, according to Mamsen's original recipe, open-faced sandwiches, and split pea soup, all warming fare when undertaking expedition activities. Thank you for your interest in attending our presentation about Viking Expeditions. I hope you've enjoyed what we've shared so far, and now I look forward to taking your questions. Hello everybody, I do hope that you enjoyed the presentation. I can see lots of questions have been coming in. Thank you very much for posting them. And so you'll see me looking up to a screen to my left here. I'm going to go through these and endeavour to answer the questions. So, first of all, Lisa from Boston has asked, is there overnight camping on the Antarctic and Arctic expeditions? And do expeditions go to the polar circles at either end? So, Lisa, thank you for the question. Is there overnight camping in Antarctica? Yes, there will be an overnight camping option, which a subset of the guests will be able to do. And I think there's going to be that's one of the very few activities there'll be a small extra fee for. For Arctic expeditions in Arctic Svalbard, we will not be doing coastal camping, and that is actually because of the proliferation of polar bears that are hanging around in the coastal areas. This is a behaviour change that is being seen in Svalbard in recent years. And so, and an abundance of caution so that we don't influence the wildlife behaviour, we have decided that we won't be doing coastal camping in Arctic Svalbard. As for expeditions going to the polar circle at either end, in the north, absolutely. Svalbard is at 80 degrees north nearly, so it's very far off, well within the Arctic Circle at 66 degrees north. And so we'll definitely be there. And then in Antarctica, we will hope to, where possible, get down to the Antarctic Circle. The Antarctic Peninsula sticks out further north, if you will, from the Antarctic mainland, from the main continent. But on the voyages, we will be hoping that we will cross wherever we can. Next question. It's a long one from Dave in the United States. He says, I see many other cruise lines are building expedition ships this year, creating new itineraries for Antarctica. Are they going to congregate in the same place? And it says, I have a cruise booked on Octantis for January 2023. Will we see lots of other ships? And will I have to be careful? So, Dave, thank you for the question, and for reassurance that there is a scheduling process in Antarctica. So even though when we see those vessels that are going, the Antarctic Peninsula is a big place, and so the scheduling means that individual sites are booked and coordinated by IATO, the body, the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators. And so you won't be seeing lots of other vessels there, and that dance coordinates to reduce the pressure on individual sites, and also to ensure that you do have the pristine wilderness to enjoy. I have a next question from Nikki in Cape Charles. So my husband and I are booked on the October 22 cruise from Cork to Buenos Aires on the Polaris. Anxious to see, can't wait to go. And is this the first? Well, thank you very much for the lovely comments there. We're looking forward to hosting you. Next one, Andre from Gatineau in Canada asks, what is the ice class of the ship? And the ice class is Polar Class 6. So she is strongly ice strengthened, and will be able to operate in all the areas and at the times and the seasons that we'd like to do in where there is ice in the water, or indeed in open water with icebergs around. Next question is from John in New York. What will be the entertainment on board? Are there music shows or just talks and presentations? Well, John, there will be a musician on board. On expeditions, the key entertainment will be the amazing wildlife and all the specialists on board with the educational side. But for those that would like to be entertained, then there is a musician, and also with the Aula, with the 8K screen as well for projecting. That will also give an opportunity for showing films in remarkable resolution. Pam has asked, will there be opportunities to kayak on Great Lakes expeditions? The short answer is yes. We'll be using our own kayaks on the Canadian side of the Great Lakes, and we'll either be using our own or possibly an external provider on the US side, depending on these are following all the local rules and guidelines about the use of craft on both the American and the Canadian side. So yes, we will be doing kayaking on Great Lakes expeditions. Elizabeth has asked, how many land and water excursions are included per day in Antarctica? And I think this is a really interesting question, because we are not just defining expeditions as being a landing. So we're not talking about landings per se. What we're very interested in is making sure that there is a variety of activities every time we're doing off-ship activities. And that will include the use of the submersibles, that will be use of the rib cruising, that will be the Zodiacs, that will be the kayaking, as well as the shore. So on every activity day, there will be a variety of different things that guests can do. Kenneth has asked, what will be the weather like on Octantis on the 25th of June? It doesn't specify the year. That's a very nice question, but in June, Octantis will be, she will be in the Great Lakes, and at the Great Lakes in June, well, I think that it'd be in the sort of spring, summer, but having said that, on all expeditions, in all places around the world, in my experience, it's always best to plan for all the weathers, and so asking what the weather's going to be like, I would say it's always prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Next question is from Howard in Burke, US. Oh, it's actually a statement. It says, I love your wall paintings, opening up the room. Well, thank you very much. Actually, this is with COVID times, we're all working in special places. This is actually in my son's bedroom. It's where he's painted it to look like mountains and sky. So it's thank you, Howard. That's very sweet. Catherine in Santa Rosa has asked, what is something to experience that I might overlook? And on a personal level, I would say that being able to open the windows maybe very early in the morning or very late at night, especially in high latitudes when there's a lot of light, and getting that experience during when it's particularly quiet and maybe others will have gone to bed. I find personally that is an experience that I absolutely love, and I think that maybe that's not something that people necessarily think about when going on voyages like this. Robert in Greensboro has asked, are expeditions appropriate for those with limited mobility? Yes, the vessels do have disabled access cabins, and certainly we will be planning for a variety of different abilities for our guests. And so you'll be able to choose activities that suit your specific choices and requirements. There are some limitations of going on some activities, particularly going ashore. If going ashore, then if depending on, I mean, of course, everybody's specific, but we would have to make sure that you have sufficient mobility to be able to be safe. But we'll do everything that we can to ensure that you can enjoy activities as much as possible. Leslie in Poulsbo has asked, how do we handle medical emergencies? Are there doctors on board? And can we handle resuscitation and so on until reaching advanced care facilities? So the simple answer is yes, we have a doctor and 2 nurses on board the vessels at all time, and will be fully trained, briefed and prepared for medical emergencies as they come up. The caveat is that we are working in very remote places, which is why we have the requirements to make with medical questionnaires beforehand, and sort of maybe for everybody to be aware that especially when we're in the Antarctic, we are, when we're at the furthest south, a few days away from more advanced care facilities. And so that's always something to bear in mind, and that's why we take safety and the planning very much around expeditions very, very carefully. Lisa in Boston has asked, which expeditions would we be able to go in the submarines? And so in the Great Lakes, and also in on the Canadian side especially, and also in the Antarctic, and we'll be using the submersibles. Specifically in Svalbard at the moment, we understand that the submersibles will not be able to be used, but in the other voyages, absolutely. We have a very nice comment from a very regular sailor with us. Mika from Montclair has said, why, oh why did Viking not start 30 years ago with exploration vessels? I've been on 9 ocean and river cruises and still 2 to go. I'll be 90 years old. I just love them. Well, thank you very much for such lovely words. And I do hope that you'll come and join us again. Barry in Sarasota has asked, in the Galapagos, captains are told which islands they can go to. Are we free to go where we want in the Arctic and the Antarctic? So if I start with the Arctic, we do have a sort of free rein within the regulations of Svalbard, although sometimes specific sites are closed during parts of the season, depending on, for example, if ice is exposing cultural heritage, which therefore would be very sensitive to visitors. But on the whole, we do have a relatively free rein. In the Antarctic, there is actually a booking system that is undertaken before the season starts, with all expedition operations that are going to Antarctica coordinate amongst themselves the different locations, and Viking, of course, would take part in that. So there is a more specific itinerary, although on any given voyage, depending on the weather and other external factors, there is adaptability that can be made, and there's on every expedition there is always a plan B, a plan C and a plan D to ensure that on every expedition activity day there are fantastic things that guests can undertake. Catherine asks, is the expedition ship an X-bow ship? And the simple answer is no. X-bow ships, for those that are familiar, have the sort of the rounded concave, if you like, bow, but with a bulbous bow that is designed originally in North Sea oil and gas. We have a vertical stem, so there's no bow bulb underneath the waterline. Very strong, very long, slender, beautiful hull that has been extensively designed and tank tested to behave very well in rough weather. And with that straight stem also gives a very beautiful lines. Judy in Seattle has asked, how do we personalize scientific experiences for our guests, given that there's over 300 on board? That's a very good question, and one I'll endeavour to ask, and it's particularly my role, is that although there'll be 300 people on board, a variety of activities are undertaken at any given time. And so we will have a coordinator for the science, whose title is the Field Research Coordinator, and their role is to work to ensure that the different scientific programs working on the ship are all coordinated together and to interact with guests with specific interests. And then there will be opportunities to do fieldwork in smaller groups, whether it be on the Zodiacs or with the ribs, especially with our survey rib, on the shore and with the laboratory. So everything will be doing much smaller units. And that will be according to the different research programs that are going on at any given time on the vessel. We'll have a minimum of 3 different programs running at any given time. And there'll be a variety of different activities that also individual guests might want to engage in depending on their personal interest. So whilst there'll be a broad number of people on the boat at any given time, all different activities and particular interests will be endeavoured to be catered for. And that includes the participation and the engagement that guests might choose to do with our resident scientists on board. Dexter in LA asks, will onshore expeditions accommodate those who walk with a cane or a walker? And are you recalling the response I gave just a few minutes ago? We will endeavour to ensure that those with more limited mobility can get ashore. And certainly if you walk with a cane, that would be no problem at all for us. We'll be providing every guest, should they wish, 2 Nordic walking poles every time they go ashore. And if one wants to use your own cane, that of course would be fine. The only thing we'd ask is that we would ensure that it is fully biosecure using our state-of-the-art biosecurity cleansing facilities when going ashore and then coming back aboard again, so that there's no risk of transferring organic matter or pathogens between sites and from the mainland through to the vulnerable regions that we are visiting. With those with a walker, though, just to comment, if taking a walker, that may be a little bit too limited in mobility specifically on the very rugged shores of the Arctic and the Antarctic. Stephanie in Pasadena has asked, might be a naive question, but is there sonar detection of icebergs ongoing, considering the docking spots? And so the first question there is yes, we'll be using radar mostly, will be the way we find icebergs. We also do have extensive sonar equipment from a navigational point of view. And we also have a research grade Kongsberg multi-beam sonar on our research rib as well, on the survey rib, which is not specifically detecting icebergs, but will be able to get very high resolution images of the subsea, of the bathymetry, the undersea areas. And so from a safety point of view, we'll be, of course, making sure that the vessel remains safe. And then from a research point of view, the glaciology and indeed the iceberg research will be of great interest. Second part of Stephanie's question is saying, did I hear correctly when saying couples are single travellers not part of excursions? And although many Viking guests do travel with couples, of course, single travellers are welcome as well and would, of course, be part of any excursion as well. So maybe I misspoke when implying that only couples would be on excursions. Jim in Seattle has asked about itineraries exploring Antarctica and what will be details and how many people are allowed to land, and we're stopping in the South Shetlands, and we'll be going to the Weddell Sea, and how many scientists and guides on the expedition. That's a long question. I'll endeavour to cover each of them. So we'll have a wide variety of activities going to different locations, both in the South Shetland Islands, which are just a little further north from the Antarctic Peninsula, and around the western side of the Antarctic Peninsula. On some itineraries in the future, we may go into the Weddell Sea area. We're planning on the west side, the northwest side of the Antarctic Peninsula. How many people are allowed to land at any one time? Well, the Antarctic Treaty has international rules about this, and so at any given time 100 guests are ashore, or maximum allowed to be ashore, and that is across the whole of the Antarctic continent. And so the way we run that will be rotating, so that at any given time there'll be a rotating number of guests on the shore, and then others will be on the ribs or on the Zodiacs, cruising, and the submersible, doing other activities on the ship as well. So it's that's how we deal with that. How many scientists and trained guides and specialists? We'll have a minimum of 24 specialists of whole different varieties of different scientific disciplines, and specialist mountain guides and specialist naturalist guides, and of course there's the submersible pilots, others as well. So that's how many will be on any given expedition. Joanna in San Diego asks us, how can you tell us about Great Lakes expeditions? Well, there's a variety of itineraries. It's beyond this question to be able to answer, so I'd encourage Joanna and others that are interested in the Great Lakes expeditions to look on Viking.TV. We have a variety of really nice images and films about those, and of course in our marketing brochures. And also after these questions have been finished, there is another film that we'd like to show you at the end if you'd like to stay on and watch a little longer, and that will cover also some highlights about our Great Lakes expeditions. Howard has asked, when is Octantis due to be launched? And she's due to be launched at the end of this year. So she has already launched into the water, so she is floating, and there is continued work on her right now with a view to her being finalised by the end of 2021. Diane from the US, a very nice comment here. 4 words, I want to go. Well, frankly, so do I too. I can't wait. I know we're all feeling very constrained with this most challenging of times at the moment with the lack of travel. But thank you for such a lovely comment. Next question is Barry from the United States asks, will everyone have an opportunity to go in the submarines, and will we all have landings in the Antarctic? So simple answer, yes. Every guest who would like to go will have the opportunity to dive with the submersibles, and that is at no extra cost. That's going to be one of our core activities, and so that's very exciting for exploring under the water as well as on the water. And secondly, will we all have landings in the Antarctic? Yes. If there's any doubt, there is rules actually of larger vessels. Any vessel that has more than 500 passengers on board, paying passengers, is not allowed to land anywhere in the Antarctic, and that's actually international law. So of course Viking Expeditions will have fewer than that, and so our vessels are in the category of expedition vessels that can land, and so that we will certainly have landings in the Antarctic. Gloria in Wimbledon has asked, my sister and I have booked a Great Lakes voyage in August 2022. We'll be in our late 70s. Will we be able to participate in most activities? Well, Gloria, I can't comment on how fit and active you are. I think age is no barrier, and certainly in my previous time working as an expedition leader, I learnt very much so that it is very rarely the more senior that are limited. It's usually the younger ones. So William in Houston has asked, is there a time of the year when the weather is better or clearer so that we'll have more sunny good weather days than others? And that's a bit of especially for me talking to you from Cambridge in the UK, that in the UK we never know in the season when it's going to be clear. certainly when we're in the polar areas, we are there in the respective summers in the north and of the austral summer as well. And the weather can be lovely, it can be challenging, but as long as you're appropriately dressed, as I mentioned in the presentation, then these places are always amazing to explore. And when we're in the spring and summertime in the Great Lakes, also for those that are familiar with the Great Lakes, they can be wonderful, but equally it can also be rubbish weather, if you like, really inclement weather. So the question there, I'd say, is we always take photos when the weather's lovely, so we remember those really lovely days. But on any given voyage, we'll have a whole variety of weather. Richard in the US, are submarine trips in the Great Lakes, any shipwrecks to be viewed? And the simple answer is yes, there's a lot of shipwrecks in the Great Lakes, and we will be endeavouring to go and visit them. We're having active discussions, in fact, with our partners in the Great Lakes, who are very keen that having submersible capacity on an expedition vessel is unprecedented in previous times in the Great Lakes. So we're very excited about that. Alice, another submersible question. Will all guests have an opportunity to use the submersibles? It only seats 6, so 12 at a time. So Alice, that is correct. There's 12 at any given time diving, but the vessel there can go up and down relatively rapidly. And whenever we're stopped, the vessel is either on dynamic positioning or on anchor, we will be doing submersible activities wherever possible. And so there will be many, many dives being taken on every expedition. So we are certainly planning to ensure that every guest that wishes to go diving on a submersible will be able to do so. Dan in the US has asked, which cruises have the opportunity to see Aurora Borealis? So, Dan, Borealis is the Northern Lights, and the Northern Lights actually during the summertime when we will be in the Arctic, very little chance. It'll actually be light the entire time when we're up at 80 degrees north. The best time is our Viking Ocean voyages, the Northern Lights voyages in the winter time. We're best to see that. For the Southern Lights, Aurora Australis is actually the same, that although there's slightly more chance really when we're there in the austral summer, the Antarctic summer, there'll be very little chance to see the Southern Lights. That is a winter phenomenon. So whilst Viking offers that on expeditions, is much less likely. Richard in the US has said, please say again what the lab on board is for. And so just by explanation, we have a full research wet lab on board. And so what it's going to be for is for the primary research that will be undertaken by resident scientists coming from our partner organisations that our guests will be able to participate in. And also it will be enabled for demonstrations to be undertaken, for citizen science to be undertaken. And so it's as I mentioned, it's a technical space, so supervised access will be available for our guests working with our scientists. And of course, our resident scientists who are on board, who will be undertaking primary research, will be using the lab as their space for sorting samples, for preparing equipment that will be then being used in fieldwork, for undertaking analyses, that kind of thing. John from 1000 Oaks has made a very nice comment saying this is a nice presentation from Viking. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. Bruce has asked, for Antarctic trips, will the boots, the pants, the outerwear be pre-cleaned after use in previous trips, and can we guarantee will be properly fitting? So the first part is absolutely yes. Everything that is on the ship for use will be thoroughly cleaned and appropriately disinfected between voyages. And guaranteeing that the equipment will be provided to fitted, we are certainly endeavouring to make sure there'll be a very wide range of sizes and planning to ensure, including through the information that we're requesting of passengers before they depart, that everything will fit. So that's as close as a guarantee as I can say, but certainly that we would fully intend that everybody would have appropriately fitting equipment to enable that they have the best time on their expeditions. Mike asks, with 300 guests, 6 seats on submersibles, will all passengers have an opportunity, or will only one category of stateroom be privileged in early booking ahead of the cruise? So whilst we will have a booking system for all our activities that will be as sophisticated to enable everybody to engage, and there is a prioritization for some activities, to go back to the number of seats on the submersibles and the number of guests, to reprise that point that we are planning that with the multiple dives on every given voyage, that everybody will be able to have a chance to dive. Pam has asked, on the Great Lakes, will the vessels also be launched from within the ship, including kayaks and zodiacs? So I'll just make a little clarification there that the slipway inside the ship enables the ribs to be launched from internally, and it will also enable, if we need to launch the zodiacs from inside as well. There will be some guests that maybe have less mobility, that the ability, being able to get onto a zodiac from inside the ship will be preferable, and certainly that will be an opportunity. However, we also have the facility to open hatchways midships of the vessel, either side, that will create platforms for very rapid zodiac operations. And so we'll be using that as well in order to be able to do our tendering and our zodiac cruising in a very efficient manner. The entire design of the vessel has been designed so that very rapid deployment and recovery of equipment can be made, and also multiple off-ship activities can be undertaken at the same time. And really, the vessel, if you like, is almost like an aircraft carrier or a similar sort of military vessel in disguise, with a lovely white outside. And certainly, in terms of launching and redeployment, we're confident that we've designed the vessel around those operations rather than solely around hotel kind of comfort with expedition operations tacked on the side. And that's we feel we've certainly been unprecedented so far in the expedition industry. Regarding launch of the kayaks will be launched from outside the vessel. Getting down the slipway in a kayak, I think, might be quite challenging, but certainly our intention is that kayak launching will be from outside the vessel, getting on and off the kayaks from a stable platform, either from the shore or from a zodiac. Rebecca from Granby has asked, if only 100 total guests on shore at a time, is that across all ships, all cruise lines, or just from our ship? So for clarity there, on any given landing from any one vessel, that will be the only vessel at a given location at that time. So whilst at the same time in a given site, it will be from all ships, there would only be one vessel there. So if that makes sense. So to answer Rebecca's comment is that it would be from our ship, because we would be the sole visitor at a given site at a given time in Antarctica. Bonnie has asked, if for Pickering in Canada, is there individual or group guided photography sessions? So within our team of resident specialists, we have a professional photographer always included as part of the team, and that individual will be offering group training and opportunities to work with them and to in the studio, so workshop style, as well as offering tips and advice at any given time. So that certainly will be part of what we're offering. Lynn in Canada has asked, do we go through the Drake Passage, and we'll look at how we handle the rough conditions? So the Drake Passage is the stretch of water that's well known for being rough weather, that is stretches between the bottom tip of South America and the top of the Antarctic Peninsula, and is about just around 600 miles wide. And because of the nature of where it is on the Earth, and it's relatively shallow, and also there is no land at that latitude, around the sort of the 6 degrees latitude around the Earth, you do get rough weather. And so, yes, we will be crossing backwards and forth to Antarctica from South America down to Antarctica and back again. And sometimes the Drake Passage is completely calm, and it's then euphemistically known as the Drake Lake. And other times it can be very rough, and it's known as the Drake Shake. However, we have ensured that the vessel is designed to handle those conditions as well as possible, as any vessel is going to be able to handle it. And so, in my experience of having crossed the Drake Passage many, many times, whilst it can be a bit wavy for some of the time, it is never of a situation that would be beyond sort of discomfort, or would be beyond a concern. And certainly we're planning to make sure that that passage in particular is exciting rather than of any concern to our guests. Carol and Bill have asked, what are the most exciting expeditions to take? And is commenting on the Great Lake expeditions. Well, it's a bit like, that's a tough question to ask me as a Viking Expeditions employee. It's like picking between your children. All these voyages are exciting. When it comes to expedition activities, of course, the ultimate is going to be in the polar areas, so in the Antarctica and the Arctic. But the expeditions, if you're looking for really expeditionary activity in the Great Lakes, the ones that spend the time around Georgian Bay in particular will have more, if you like, a traditional expedition feel. That's certainly where maybe the expedition excitement would be. However, I will guarantee on a personal level that when you're at sea in an expeditionary mode, there's always something new to enjoy and to experience. And so for me, that is always exciting. Irene in the US has said, I sometimes get seasick. When is the best time to go to Antarctic or the Arctic for calmer waters? So there is no seasonal time that we could say that the weather is better or worse. And in fact, it's always best to plan for a little bit of water movement. To be reassured there, though, it's the open water and the crossings where the boat may move a little bit more. When you are within the Antarctic or around the islands, the South Shetland Islands, or indeed in the Arctic, around Svalbard and elsewhere in the Arctic, then because of the proximity of ice and the proximity of land, the waters on the whole are much calmer. So it is the sea crossings on the whole, when you're in the open ocean, is when there would be a little bit of water movement. And of course, there is no time that one could predict when it's better or worse. However, seasickness is absolutely controllable, whether it be naturally through sleep and not having responsibility and a bit of ginger, through to a whole variety of anti-seasickness medications. And so famously, Nelson was always seasick at the beginning of all his voyages too. But certainly in my career at sea, I've known that there are some that get seasick and some that don't. And there's always one boat that might make you feel a bit unwell. But certainly we're doing everything we can to make sure that the expeditions absolutely are exploring in comfort. Lynn in Canada has asked, can helicopters land on the ship? And is she double-hulled? So firstly, can helicopters land? Yes, we have a helipad on the ship for evacuation emergencies. However, we are not operating helicopters as part of the activities. And in fact, I'd just like to elaborate on that. In a very early iteration of our expedition designs, we were considering having helicopters in the aft of the vessel. And in fact, the Aula space was originally conceived as a helicopter hangar. And on reflection, thinking about what it is that we wanted to do for expeditions, we concluded that having an amazing learning space was a far more benign and enjoyable and informative and enriching space than having the helicopters. And in fact, with helicopters, typically you have a few guests that are maybe going on a crossing or a transit, but they are getting the enjoyment, and then everybody else is having to put up with the noise of the helicopters. And so philosophically, we have have felt that helicopters are not appropriate when it comes to having a really enriching expedition experience. So, and as to the ship being double hulled, well, she's ice strengthened, and so she's been designed specifically around her polar category, her polar class 6. Todd has asked, what changes on the ship because of COVID? That's a very good question. And of course, right across the Viking fleet, we have made extensive planning around mitigating on COVID. And what I'd encourage Todd for you to do is that we have a health management plan that has been developed since COVID times. And I'd encourage you to read that, of all the things that we're planning right across Viking to ensure that we can be as safe and mitigation of COVID to be as safe as possible. Indeed, we feel it is, as we've gone further than anybody else in the entire industry to make sure. So, of course, inevitably there are going to be changes in procedures and the equipment as a result. But I'd encourage you to read that and see how comprehensively we're looking to address that. Marvin Egan in the US has asked, can I get some advice on photographic equipment that is best to bring prior to an expedition? And of course, that's a long question to ask, but the simplest thing I would say is whatever equipment you take, you will be able to take amazing photographs. And the key is to know how to use it. So whatever it is you're taking, learn how to use it before you go. Now, when I was an expedition leader in the past, I routinely have had guests in the past, in the previous expedition operations I've worked in, who turn up with $10,000 cameras and say, I've just bought this, I'm on an Antarctic expedition with this super long lens, this lovely SLR camera, whatever. Can you show me how to use it? And our resident photographer, typically in those situations, or people that were familiar with equipment, would say, well, it's a bit of a learning thing to start at this point. So whilst depending on your particular type of photos you want to take and the price point that you may want to spend on equipment, the key is to, if you're planning to take equipment, please do become familiar with it before you turn up. Roger in the US asked, are the Great Lakes part of this series? Well, the Great Lakes absolutely are part of our expedition planning, and certainly in this presentation, maybe I put more emphasis on the polar side, but after this Q&A, the film that we'll be showing will include Great Lakes content, and indeed there are other films on Viking.TV that I'd encourage you to browse around to tell you more about the Great Lakes operations itineraries. However, the expedition operations, what we're discussing this evening, is everything that is relevant to all of the expedition voyaging that we're undertaking. Patricia in Garnet Valley asks, please give more details on the snow grotto. So I know you may smile to say we're taking snow to polar regions. This is, if you like, a snow shower. So for those that would like to get cold and then warm again in the warming cave or in the Badestamp or whatever, it's that ability to change temperature, which is very much part of Nordic culture. And for those that were keen, that haven't got cold enough when we're already in polar areas, that opportunity is there in the spa. We have another question from Yang in San Jose. When is the best time to cruise in Antarctica, January or February? The point I'd like to make there is, in terms of best, it depends on what you're interested in. In different times of the season, the main change, because as I mentioned, the weather is always a variable, is the time of year when the wildlife, which is very seasonal, may be having different stages of its development. So in the Antarctic season, which typically runs from November through to around February, March time, February therefore would be near the end of the season for when voyages can take place before the whole continent is iced in. And at that time, that is when the very seasonal animals, so the penguins and seals, are getting their young ones. The chicks are larger, they're getting ready to fledge and to go out to the open sea before the winter closes in. And so if you have an interest about the wildlife with the young being older, then February is the best time. But that doesn't mean that at the beginning of the season or the middle season, there's also very interesting times too. So there is all the nesting behavior and the laying of eggs and the behavior, the life history that is always fascinating, that will be shared and interpreted and to assist with you with our experts. So it's a challenging thing to ask what is the best time. I of course, maybe you'll say I will say that both are very interesting. But it really would, if you do a little bit of research on what it is that you're particularly interested in, that might help in your decision making. Lisbeth has asked, will there be a submersible on the Great Lakes trip? On other trips, I imagine there'll be a long queue. Can you guarantee everyone who wants one will get the opportunity? So, as I've mentioned, I'm just going to reprise this because I realise there's a lot of questions about the submersibles. And certainly, when we're running submersibles, we are certainly planning to ensure that everybody gets the opportunity. Regarding the queuing, we will have a sophisticated booking system on board to ensure that we absolutely minimise queuing for any activity. That includes the submersible operations. So there will not be long queues as highlighted here. That's not been planned for to reduce and to mitigate, to ensure that that does not happen. Barry from Boynton Beach says, I've played golf on every continent except Antarctica. Can I bring a golf ball and club and hit it on land, not leaving the ball there, of course? That's an interesting question there, Barry. Whilst I admire your enthusiasm to play golf on every continent, what we would encourage very much is very respectful behaviour around the wildlife when on the shore. So the places that we're going to in the Antarctic, you'll find that there are penguin colonies, there will be vulnerable flora and so on, and that actually very few people feel the need to do anything other than be in awe of the majesty of the landscape and the wildlife that you're around. Certainly, striking a ball, I guess, maybe a putting within your cabin or something like that might be the way forward. But I think that's how we would see that we would like to be really engaging with the outside world in as respectful a manner as possible. Dan in the US asks, what time of the year do you go to the poles and what are the chances for adverse weather? Well, the adverse weather I think I've covered, but I'll cover again. Plan for good and bad weather every day and then you'll never be caught out. In terms of when we go from, if you like, late spring through to early summer. So that's sort of like the May through to September window in the Arctic. And in the Antarctic, it will be from November through to sort of late February, early March is the window in the Antarctic. So that's respectively the summers of those places. And in fact, actually, when I reflect on my own experience, I spent nearly 3 years living in the Antarctic in the early part of my career as part of the British Antarctic Survey. One doesn't normally talk about fall or spring. It's either the winter or the summer. And the summer is when ships can get there and the winter is when they can't. So that is typically how it's defined. So when I think about my past and say I went on a 2-winter tour, that just simply means I was there for 2 seasons when the ships couldn't make it. Martin in Winchester asks, can we tell us a bit more about Great Lakes, how they are distinctive? The key thing with our Great Lakes expeditions is that, number one, the vessels have been specifically designed to be able to get into the Great Lakes in the first place. So they are designed to be, they're going to be a tight fit, but we're working very closely with the lock designers and engineers to enter into the Great Lakes system. And also because of the proximity of iconic cities around the Great Lakes, and indeed First Peoples and indigenous cultures around the Great Lakes, there would be more interaction around the culture of this extraordinary lake system. In contrast to when we're in polar areas, where certainly in the Antarctic there is no indigenous population of humans. And so whilst there are other people that are visiting, very much it is engaging in the wildlife there. And then in the Arctic also, whilst there is a small settlement in Longyearbyen, when in Svalbard, like the capital of Svalbard, when we are in the more remote places, again, it is engaging with the wildness, the wilderness and wild areas and wild animals rather than the human interaction. So the distinction I would make is that the Great Lakes Expeditions has that mix between the culture and wilderness, as opposed to the polar areas with much more emphasis on solely wilderness. I've just question here. Michael from the US asks, when will be Viking releasing 2023 schedule for expedition ships? Now, whilst I'm not involved on the marketing and the sales side, I have been advised that that will be in a few months' time. So it's a short answer there, and I'm sure to watch this space and regarding when the 2023 schedule will be released. Okay, there's just a couple of the comments, but I think that is all the questions that have come in. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me share the enthusiasm I feel for what is a fantastic and exciting product. And I'm going to sign out now by saying, until next time, very much have enjoyed talking with you about Viking Expeditions. And we're going to show one final film, which will be another reprise of all the different aspects of Viking Expeditions. Cheerio.
Centuries ago, the Vikings established a tradition of exploration that took them to Europe, Russia, the Middle East, and the shores of North America. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, intrepid Norwegians again led the way, exploring the vast, largely unknown polar regions. This heritage of firsts continues with Viking. We first popularized river cruising, then reinvented the ocean voyage, and now we're leading the way once more with journeys to the extraordinary. Introducing Viking Expeditions. Thoughtfully curated, refreshingly innovative, once-in-a-lifetime experiences in the wilds of the Arctic, Antarctica, and the Great Lakes, nestled in the heart of North America.
These are places that very few people will ever have the privilege of visiting, which is why it's so important for us to deliver the very best experience we possibly can to our guests. It's experiences that create memories for a lifetime, but also hopefully give them another lens through which they view our beautiful world.
Our Antarctic Explorer is a fascinating 13-day journey, introducing our guests to this majestic continent.
It is truly the greatest wilderness on the planet. In a world of nearly 8 billion people, that's a continent the size of North America that has not yet been colonized.
Its many wonders revealed to our guests by knowledgeable Viking experts.
It is somewhere that you viscerally experience, feeling the wind, feeling the isolation. You might have seen a sunrise before, but not like an Antarctic one. You might have seen bioluminescence before, but not like you'll see in the Southern Ocean. It's like with the volume dialed to 11.
During the Antarctic summer, the bitter cold weather gives way to long daylight hours and relatively mild weather, making it the perfect time to explore the many remarkable aspects of this pristine environment.
seeing wildlife that is completely not scared of human beings. To see those in their natural habitat, in such abundance, in such a wild place, is quite an experience unlike anything else on the planet.
With extensive programs both on board and on shore, our guests will enjoy an unprecedented immersion into the grandeur of the last continent. At the top of the world, our Arctic adventure itinerary takes our guests to Svalbard and the edge of the polar ice cap. For 13 days of unending exploration, they'll experience the stark, haunting beauty of the Arctic in the Svalbard archipelago, lands of rugged fjords and much, much more.
The scenery is so unusual. The sea ice, the glaciers and the ice sheets are so outside of most people's normal experience. It is a completely different world. You really feel as though you're as far away as you possibly can be from civilization. And indeed you are.
In Svalbard, Viking guests will enjoy dramatic ice-sculpted landscapes in this ever-changing region. It's a robust ecosystem that bursts with life and activity for just a few precious months each year. This is a rare opportunity to search for nature's most elusive creatures under the lingering midnight sun. Beyond the breathtaking wildlife and raw beauty, our guests will explore other aspects of Svalbard, including remote outposts like Barentsburg, a Russian coal mining town carved from the wilderness. Mining thrived in Longyearbyen, Svalbard's capital, too, and our guests can step into this world below the surface. Or they can learn about Svalbard's important global seed bank as part of their fascinating adventure in the Arctic. Tucked into the border of the United States and Canada is an immense, deeply complex ecosystem where the world's largest body of fresh water stretches far beyond the horizon. The Great Lakes encompass more than 94,000 square miles. Viking now covers all of them with 4 intriguing itineraries. Voyages that explore their vast coastlines and stunning beauty.
We are going to learn more about the nature. We're going to make sure that we open the destinations to our guests in the way of interpreting what we see, in the way of explaining the natural phenomena.
With extensive programs on board and on shore, both above and below the surface, our guests will enjoy an unparalleled opportunity to learn more about the region, its pioneering past, along with its rich indigenous heritage, traditions and culture.
We're going to have scientists, we're going to have senior lecturers that cover history, geology, biology, bringing everybody on board to a higher level of understanding.
It's part of our commitment to ensure Viking guests experience this spectacular region in a way most never will. The polar regions and the Great Lakes are rare treasures that really shouldn't be missed, and Viking's approach is unlike any other.
The Viking way of exploring the world is designed to allow our guests to not only observe, but very much engage with the world. And you'll see that in our expeditions experiences, which set a whole new standard.
These are the thinking person's expeditions. We believe travel should be a doorway to insight and new discoveries. And every crew member on our expedition ships is committed to making those moments happen.
While some merely cruise to these places, with Viking Expeditions, you are on an expedition ship, you're getting knowledgeable lectures, bringing to life the history of the place and putting these places in a global context.
Before our guests travel, we recommend carefully curated reading materials and filmographies that inform and enlighten. And once the journey begins, our guests will find world-class lectures, access to experts, and extensive daily briefings.
Our aim is to always deliver extraordinary experiences wherever in the world our guests are sailing with us, and that there is always an educational component. I think we all aspire to know more, not less. And in the case of our expeditions experiences, there is a lot to learn.
Sharing these lands requires expertise. To help our guests best explore and understand these unrivaled destinations, we've assembled a world-class expedition team to lead and assist in these pristine places. Leaving our guests free to be curious, to learn and to explore in comfort, surrounded by the company of like-minded travelers.
We have an internal motto: if we can't do things well, we won't do it at all. And when it comes to our expeditions project, there are 3 critical components. It's the hardware, the ship, it's the software, the experts, and it's our partners.
To explore the world's most remote regions, there are 2 purpose-built, cutting-edge expedition-class ships, Viking Octantis and Viking Polaris. Inside, our 378 guests will find serene Scandinavian interiors, plus panoramic views at every turn. And they'll experience all the comfort and elegance of our award-winning ocean fleet, including many of the beloved existing spaces so unique to Viking. When it comes to accommodations, there are 3 Nordic balcony stateroom categories, plus spacious Nordic balcony junior suites, explorer suites, and an owner suite.
Because we do have the most capable ship you can imagine, we will have so many opportunities. We are going to be able to put ourselves into those very favorable situations of being where the wildlife is, being where the ice is, and where it all happens.
To complement our advanced expedition ships, we hand-picked experts to lead our guests in these extraordinary environments. Our skilled expedition team consists of over 25 experts in their fields, each well-versed on the unique geography, geology, and wildlife our guests will encounter. They'll share insights and teach guests about these delicate ecosystems and the importance of preserving them for generations to come.
With the right expert by your side, you really can have an amazing, amazing experience, and worlds will open to you that you didn't even realize existed. I didn't realize that I was interested in flowers. Our leader handed me a microscopic monocular and had me focus in on a little saxifraga. That's an Arctic flower. And all of a sudden, I was transferred into this world of beauty, of color and pollen, and it was unbelievable.
To further enhance our enrichment program and commitment to destination-focused learning, we've also partnered with some of the world's most renowned institutions.
We're very pleased and proud and honored that several of the world's leading institutions within the fields of marine biology, botany, ornithology, glaciology, and atmospheric sciences have signed on. So we feel very fortunate and very credible in our efforts.
We are setting the bar at a new level. We are convinced there's not going to be others that have that level of education on board.
When it comes to itineraries, our expeditions in the polar regions are different from the set schedules of Vikings' ocean and river ships.
Our itineraries are, of course, planned, but you can't dictate to nature. You cannot dictate the weather, you cannot dictate animal migration or appearances. So we are very flexible, such that we can seize the opportunity to capture those great moments when they happen.
While the itineraries are more structured on our Great Lakes voyages, Vikings' unwavering commitment to discovery and learning is the same on all our expeditions, providing our guests with significant opportunities to immerse themselves in their surroundings, sending them home with memories they'll forever treasure.
I like to make sure that we are taking advantage of the serendipitous happenings and events that is going on in nature. That's why we've planned plenty of time. We are not in a rush to get from one place to another. The wildlife, the culture, and the things we observe set the agenda on our voyages. What we do end up with is a unique trip every single time we sail out.
Viking Expeditions is one more step in our drive to introduce our guests to as much of the world as possible.
Ultimately, our goal is to share with our guests more of the destination, more of the nature, more of the culture, more of the animals, more of the people. Let them get closer.
With the launch of Viking Expeditions, our guests will now be able to sail to the farthest reaches of the globe and explore closer to home. It's exploration the Viking way, in complete comfort.
What I like people to feel is that they become a part of the expedition team. You know, we're making this voyage together.
We'd like our guests to return home with much more than pretty pictures. That's nice too, but the experience should be profound.